We thought this picture was real, but the truth turned out to be even more incredible. Mothers carrying 10 babies at once, the birth of the smallest newborns in history, pregnancies lasting over a year, and much more. Now you'll discover the most unusual and record-breaking births of all time. Imagine heading to the hospital expecting to welcome a newborn, and instead you're handed a baby that looks months old. That's exactly what happened in 2013 when a mother in Germany gave birth to Jasleen, a baby girl who weighed a jaw-dropping 13 pounds 8 ounces. For comparison, most newborns weigh around 7.5 pounds, making Jasleen almost twice the size of an average baby. Doctors were stunned. Babies this large are usually delivered by C-section, but in an unbelievable turn of events, Jasleen was born naturally. Her mother had undiagnosed gestational diabetes, a condition that can cause excessive fetal growth, but no one expected a baby this big. As labor progressed, doctors realized they were dealing with something extraordinary. The delivery was complicated, but in the end, both mother and baby made it through. Despite her massive size, Jasleen was healthy. She was immediately placed under observation because macrosomic babies, a term for newborns over 10 pounds, can face serious health risks, including breathing difficulties, blood sugar issues, and injuries during birth. But this little giant surprised everyone by doing well, and soon enough, she was ready to go home. What made Jasleen's case so incredible was that she wasn't born prematurely, and she didn't have a rare genetic disorder. Her extreme size was simply a result of rapid growth in the womb, making her one of the largest babies ever delivered naturally. If the story of the heaviest baby left you stunned, get ready for the complete opposite. In 2020, a baby girl named Kwek Yu Xuan was born in Singapore, weighing just 7.5 ounces, lighter than a soda can. She was so small that she could fit in the palm of a hand, and doctors weren't sure if she would survive. Born at just 24 weeks, nearly 4 months too early, Yu Xuan had almost no chance of making it. Babies this premature usually struggle to breathe, regulate body temperature, or even digest food properly. Her skin was paper thin, and her organs weren't fully developed. Doctors placed her in an incubator, carefully monitoring every heartbeat, breath, and tiny movement. What makes Yu Xuan's survival so shocking is that medicine can only do so much in cases like this. Many babies born so early don't make it, and those who do often face lifelong health complications. But against all odds, she fought through. After 13 months in the hospital, she grew strong enough to go home, becoming the smallest surviving baby ever recorded. While some babies struggle to survive one birth, others make history simply by how many are born at once. In 2021, Halima Sisi, a woman from Mali, went to the hospital expecting to give birth to 7 babies. That alone would have been an extreme medical rarity. But during delivery, doctors made a shocking discovery. She was actually carrying 9 babies. Non-uplets. Delivering twins is common, triplets are rare, but 9 babies in one birth? Almost unheard of. Most multiple pregnancies don't make it past 6 or 7 months, and survival rates drop drastically with each extra baby. Yet Halima, against all medical expectations, carried them long enough for doctors to deliver all 9 alive. The birth required a team of doctors and nurses working around the clock. Each baby was placed in an incubator, carefully monitored for signs of distress. At birth, the smallest weighed just over 1 pound, while the largest was barely 2 pounds. Even a single premature baby that small is a challenge, but keeping 9 alive at the same time, it was a medical miracle. Most high-order multiple births result in serious complications, but Halima's case is one of the few where every baby survived. As they grew stronger, their story became one of the most incredible births in modern history, proof that sometimes, even the impossible can happen. If 9 babies at once seemed impossible, what about 10? In 2021, just months after Halima Sisi made history with her non-uplets, a South African woman named Goziame Sithole stunned the world with an even more shocking claim. She had given birth to decuplets. A single pregnancy with 10 babies had never been recorded before. News reports exploded, doctors were baffled, and the supposed birth was declared a world record. According to Sithole, she had delivered 6 boys and 4 girls at 29 weeks through a C-section. But unlike Halima's widely documented case, there were no medical reports, no photos of the newborns, and no official confirmation from hospitals. As questions mounted, the story unraveled. Officials launched an investigation, and hospitals in Pretoria, where the birth was supposed to have taken place, denied any record of delivering decuplets. Even Sithol's own family was unsure what had really happened. Eventually, South African authorities declared the entire event a hoax, stating that Sithole was never pregnant at all. While Halima Sisse's 9 babies were an extraordinary but verifiable medical event, Sithole's 10 babies remained a mystery, one of the most bizarre and controversial birth stories in history. A typical pregnancy lasts about 9 months, but in rare cases, it can stretch a little longer. A week or two past the due date, normal. 3 weeks, uncomfortable but still manageable. But what if a pregnancy lasted over a year? That's exactly what happened to Beulah Hunter, an American woman who carried her baby for an astonishing 375 days, nearly 100 days longer than normal. Back in 1945, Beulah's case baffled doctors. At first, no one believed her. How could a pregnancy last that long? But medical records confirmed she had conceived at the expected time, and ultrasounds, rudimentary by today's standards, showed that her baby was still growing, just at an unusually slow rate. Despite the extreme length of her pregnancy, Beulah's baby girl was born completely healthy, weighing 6 pounds and 15 ounces. No one could fully explain why the pregnancy took so long, but doctors speculated that delayed fetal development may have played a role. Even today, Beulah's case remains the longest confirmed human pregnancy in history. While waiting 100 extra days to give birth is unimaginable, some mothers endure a completely different kind of ordeal. Not the longest pregnancy, but the longest labor ever recorded. Labor is supposed to be the final stretch of pregnancy, the painful but short-lived process before a baby is born. For most women, it lasts between 12 to 24 hours. But in one of the strangest medical cases ever recorded, a woman in Poland was in labor for 75 days. It started when she was pregnant with twins. At 21 weeks, her body suddenly went into labor. Far too early for the babies to survive. One twin was born extremely premature and sadly did not make it. But doctors made an unbelievable decision. They would try to delay the birth of the second twin for as long as possible. For the next 75 days, the mother remained in the hospital, on strict bed rest, while her body somehow kept carrying the second baby. Doctors monitored her constantly, waiting for the moment when the second twin could be safely delivered. Finally, after more than 2 months of waiting, the second twin was born, healthy and strong. This case is one of the most extreme examples of delayed twin births, proving that when it comes to childbirth, nothing is impossible. Science has changed the way we think about birth, but some pregnancies stretch the limits of time itself. In 2020, a baby girl named Molly Gibson was born in Tennessee, but her story didn't start that year. In fact, she was conceived in 1992, 27 years before her birth. Molly was the result of embryo freezing, a process where fertilized eggs are kept in deep freeze until a family is ready to use them. Her embryo was frozen in 1992, but for reasons unknown, it was never implanted. It sat untouched for nearly 3 decades. Then, in 2020, it was finally transferred to her mother, Tina Gibson, who had struggled with infertility. Amazingly, the procedure worked, and Molly was born perfectly healthy, setting the record for the longest frozen embryo to result in a successful birth. What's even stranger? Molly broke the record of her own sister Emma, who had been frozen for 24 years before her birth in 2017. This case proves that time means very little in modern reproductive science. A baby conceived decades ago can be born in the present, and some women can even become mothers at an age long past what nature intended. Most people assume there's an age limit for pregnancy, and for good reason. By the time a woman reaches her 50s, natural conception is almost impossible. But thanks to IVF technology, the limits keep getting pushed further. And in 2019, an Indian woman named Aramati Mangama broke every record when she gave birth to twins at 74 years old. Aramati and her husband had been trying for children for decades. By the time she reached her 70s, she had given up hope, until doctors convinced her to try in vitro fertilization. Against all odds, the procedure worked, and she became pregnant with twins. Doctors monitored her carefully, as pregnancies at this age are extremely risky. There was concern about her heart, blood pressure, and overall health, but she made it through. After a C-section delivery, she became the oldest mother in recorded history. While this was a medical triumph, it also raised serious ethical questions. With both parents well into their 70s, many wondered who would raise the children as they aged. Sadly, just a year later, her husband passed away, leaving the newborn twins without a father. Whether cases like this should be encouraged is still debated, but one thing is certain: modern medicine has made pregnancy possible in situations that once seemed unimaginable. Twins are usually born within minutes of each other, sometimes a little longer if complications arise. But in one of the strangest birth stories ever recorded, A set of twins in Ireland were born an astonishing 87 days apart, making them the longest separated twins in history. It all started in 2012 when Maria Jones Elliott, a mother from Waterford, Ireland, went into labor at just 23 weeks, far too early for a safe delivery. Her first twin, Amy, was born prematurely, weighing just over 1 pound. Doctors feared she wouldn't survive, but as they prepared for the birth of the second twin, something incredible happened. Maria's contractions stopped completely. Doctors decided to wait, monitoring both the newborn and the unborn twin closely. Days passed, then weeks. The second baby remained inside, growing stronger while her twin sister was already in the neonatal unit. Incredibly, Maria carried her second baby for nearly 3 more months before going into labor again. On August 27, 2012, Katie, the second twin, was born, 87 days after her sister. Despite being born at different times, the twins shared an incredible bond and grew up healthy. This case defied everything doctors knew about twin births. The human body isn't supposed to pause labor for months once it begins. But against all odds, Maria's body protected her second baby long enough for her to have a much better chance at survival. It's rare, but delayed twin births have been recorded in other cases, though none as extreme as this one. The story of Amy and Katie proves that sometimes, even when nature takes an unexpected turn, science and a little luck can make miracles happen. Most newborns are born with a little fuzz on their heads, some completely bald. But in December 2017, a baby girl in Japan, Chanko, entered the world with something truly unbelievable. A thick, full head of jet black hair, inches long from the moment she was born. Her hair grew at an astonishing rate, and by the time she was 6 months old, it was already long enough to be styled into full hairstyles. Strangers couldn't believe she was a real baby. Her thick, voluminous hair made her look like she had walked straight out of a hair commercial. Chanko's hair was so unusual that her parents began sharing photos online, and soon, she became a viral sensation. Her fame skyrocketed when the beauty brand Pantene featured her in an official shampoo commercial, possibly the youngest model ever hired for a beauty campaign. Doctors say that some babies are born with a lot of hair due to hormonal differences in the womb, but most of the time, newborn hair falls out and regrows later. Not for Chanko. Her hair never stopped growing, making her one of the most extraordinary newborns ever documented. Chanko's story may be a harmless medical mystery, but some babies are born with far more dangerous conditions. Some don't even make it to birth at all, unless they are as strong as Curtis Means, the most premature baby to ever survive. Being born even a few weeks early can lead to serious health complications. So imagine being born almost 19 weeks early, when a baby isn't even supposed to be able to survive outside the womb. That's exactly what happened to Curtis Means, who was born in Alabama in 2020 at just 21 weeks and 1 day gestation, the most premature baby to ever survive. Curtis was so underdeveloped at birth that he weighed only 14.8 ounces, barely bigger than a can of soda. His skin was translucent, his lungs were nowhere near ready to function, and doctors gave him almost no chance of survival. Most hospitals don't even attempt to save babies born before 24 weeks because the odds are so slim. But Curtis was placed on advanced life support, and slowly, he began to fight. He needed constant care, his tiny body couldn't regulate temperature, and every breath required assistance from machines. Doctors at the University of Alabama at Birmingham worked around the clock to keep him stable. Against all medical predictions, Curtis kept growing. After spending 275 days in the hospital, he was finally strong enough to go home, still needing oxygen support, but otherwise healthy. His survival is considered one of the greatest medical miracles in neonatal care. Curtis's record is official. His name is in the Guinness World Records as the most premature baby ever to survive. But what makes his case so unbelievable is that he wasn't even supposed to have a chance. His story proves that even in the most impossible circumstances, some babies refuse to give up. Most people consider a family with 4 or 5 kids to be big. But in the 1700s, one woman in Russia redefined the meaning of a large family forever. Valentina Vasilyeva, the wife of a peasant farmer, holds the record for the most children ever born to a single woman, an unbelievable 69. Her pregnancies were nothing short of extraordinary. In just 27 labors, she gave birth to 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. Not a single one was a singleton birth. Every pregnancy resulted in multiple babies. This kind of fertility is almost unheard of in medical history. Even more shocking, 67 of her 69 children reportedly survived infancy, which, in the 1700s, was nearly impossible. Child mortality rates were extremely high, and yet her family thrived. Historians believe that her body must have been uniquely capable of handling these extreme pregnancies. Though there are no official medical records to confirm the exact details, her case was reported by the Russian government at the time, making it one of the most well-documented birth records from that era. Even today, no woman has come close to breaking her record. While Valentina's case seems almost unnatural, modern medicine has made birth possible in ways people never thought possible. In fact, the first baby ever conceived outside the womb changed science forever, and it happened much more recently than you might think. For most of history, if a woman couldn't conceive naturally, there was no solution. Infertility was a mystery, and couples who struggled to have children were left without hope. But everything changed on July 25, 1978, when a baby girl named Louise Brown was born in England. She wasn't just any baby. She was the first ever human conceived through in vitro fertilization, or IVF. Her parents, Leslie and John Brown, had been trying to conceive for 9 years without success. In a groundbreaking experiment, doctors took one of Leslie's eggs, fertilized it with John's sperm in a laboratory, and then implanted the embryo into her uterus. The procedure had never been done successfully before. The world held its breath, and after a normal pregnancy, Louise was born completely healthy, proving that babies could be conceived outside the human body and still develop normally. The birth was a medical revolution, opening the door for millions of families who had lost hope of ever having children. Today, millions of babies have been born through IVF, and the procedure has evolved far beyond its early days. Scientists can now freeze embryos for decades, select the healthiest ones, and even use donor eggs or sperm to help people have children. Louise Brown's birth wasn't just a miracle. It was a turning point in medical history. It proved that human reproduction was no longer limited to nature's rules, and for the first time science had found a way to defy infertility itself. For most of history, pregnancy has been a biological certainty. Only women could give birth. But in 2008, that changed forever when a man named Thomas Beatty made headlines worldwide for doing something no man had ever done before: giving birth to a baby. Thomas was assigned female at birth but later transitioned to live as a man. He underwent hormone therapy, chest surgery, and legally changed his gender, but he chose to keep his female reproductive organs. This made him one of the very few transgender men capable of carrying a child. When his wife Nancy was unable to conceive, Thomas made a decision that shocked the world. He would carry their baby himself. He stopped taking testosterone, used donor sperm, and in 2008, he successfully became pregnant. After a normal pregnancy, he gave birth to a healthy baby girl, making him the first legally recognized man to give birth. People were fascinated, confused, and sometimes even outraged by his story. Some called it a miracle of modern medicine, while others struggled to accept the idea of a pregnant man. But Thomas didn't stop there. He later gave birth to 2 more children, proving that his first pregnancy wasn't just a one-time medical anomaly. His case challenged the world's understanding of gender and pregnancy, forcing doctors, lawmakers, and society to rethink what was biologically possible. While many transgender men today have carried pregnancies, Thomas remains the most famous example, and the first to make history. Most twins are born a few weeks early, but Keely and Cambry Ewalt entered the world more than 4 months too soon. Born in November 2018, they arrived at just 22 weeks and 1 day, making them among the youngest premature twins to ever survive. At birth, each twin weighed less than 1 pound and was so fragile that their skin was almost see-through. Doctors gave them less than a 1% chance of survival, as most hospitals don't even try to save babies this premature. But Keely and Cambry fought hard. For months they remained in incubators, hooked up to ventilators, battling infections and underdeveloped lungs. Slowly, against all odds, they grew stronger. After 4 months in the hospital, they were finally able to go home. Their survival is one of the most extreme cases of premature twin births, proving that even at the very edge of viability, some babies refuse to give up. Pregnancy is hard on the body, but imagine carrying a baby when you're only 2 feet 4 inches tall. That was the reality for Stacy Harold, a woman with a rare genetic disorder that made pregnancy incredibly dangerous. Doctors begged her not to have children, warning that her tiny frame couldn't handle it. But Stacy and her husband wanted a family, and despite the risks, she became pregnant. Incredibly, she gave birth 3 times through C-sections, making her the smallest mother in history. Each pregnancy put her life in danger as her growing belly compressed her lungs and organs. Yet, she successfully delivered 2 daughters and a son, all of whom inherited her condition. Though Stacy passed away in 2018, her story remains one of the most unbelievable examples of human resilience. That's about it. Write in the comments which story impressed you the most. For more useful information, watch other videos.